Nice.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday stream. Allow me to introduce to you Jamie. Jamie is also known as the Epicurian Atheist on Twitter. That's where I ran into him, incidentally. So welcome to our Sunday stream. It's great to meet you in person after all the tech issues.
Thanks, Dean. Delighted to be here with you.
Amazing. Yeah, just to recap, our Meet the Atheists series is basically just me going around looking for atheists in all different contexts. So I found atheists in Africa, in America, all over the show. And we try to focus on basically an African context on our streams,
Sure.
Especially women and the African demographic are extremely underrepresented in the atheist community.
Yeah.
Whenever I find somebody, I leap and pounce on them.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think there's a cultural connection.
Sorry, just before you carry on, just a quick question.
Yeah.
The label Epicurean Atheist, where did you stumble across that one?
Well, I've been at some points a very militant atheist. Right now, I'm quite passive.
Same.
As I grew more tired of the circular arguments of the religious apologists, I became less and less inclined to get involved in that dogfight. It got nowhere. It wasn't intellectually challenging. So the Epicurean thing came from some reference to, and I'm not clear, some reference to a combination of my love for food. I'm an amateur chef, and I love fine dining, and some reference to a Greek god or a Greek philosopher that didn't believe in gods.
Epicurus, yeah.
Correct, yeah. So, yeah, it wasn't too intellectually challenging. It was simply a reference, and I thought, it suits me. It's fine.
Hey, wow, that sounds cool. Let me try that.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went. I didn't give it too much thought. It just worked, and I've just stuck with it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did a cursory search just about the history of the term, and it's to be an Epicurean is basically to be a connoisseur of fine food and fine wine, and it's become synonymous with indulging in sense experience, whatever form that takes for you.
At some point, I must have done the same search. But there's only so many things you can hold in your brain.
Exactly. So, let's jump into it, Jamie. Why don't you tell us about your religious background? I mean, did you grow up in a religion?
I grew up. I was born in Swaziland in 1963, and I was born into a nominally Anglican family. We weren't suffused with religion, but it was present. And we did the prayers at night to gentle Jesus. I would go to Sunday school. And I hadn't any concept of questioning my belief system. And then I was at the tender age of 6. I was shipped off to White River to an Anglican boarding school.
Right.
And there I encountered our dean, who was our house manager, who was an Anglican bishop. And he was the cruelest man I'd ever met in my life. And even at that tender age, I found this kind of conflict between the story of Jesus and the gentle nature of him, because I hadn't read the Bible. I hadn't realized the horror show that the Bible is. And to me, Jesus was just gentle. It was turn the other cheek kind of stuff, no rational thinking about it. But this conflict between this terribly cruel Anglican priest who used to beat me with a clothes brush, really began to, I know it sounds crazy, at a very young age, I began to doubt the story.
Right.
And probably a couple of years later, back in Swaziland, when, to my horror, I discovered that Santa Claus wasn't real. Then these rational steps followed very quickly afterwards, and I recognized that the tooth fairy wasn't real either. Neither was the tokolosh, and then of course, and then neither was God. And so I held that position without confronting it intellectually.
Yeah,
I was neutral in this place, but if ever anybody spoke to me about it, I thought, well, I doubt it. I doubt the probability of God. And I just stayed in neutral for probably the next 20, 25 years. And then all of a sudden I started to get offended by the claims and the assertions of the religious, and how they would dictate areas of my life that had nothing to do with them. And as soon as that began to happen, my militancy increased. And at the same time, my desire to understand the arguments increased. So I began to, rapidly read the Bible and versions of the Bible. And I began to build knowledge about the certainty of the unlikeliness or the improbability of God. And whilst I won't go so far as to say, for the sake of argument, that gods don't exist, because that's a claim that requires a burden of proof.
Yeah.
Between you and I would say certainly the Christian version of God cannot exist. And I think I can probably win that rational argument.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
I agree with you. Yeah.
Then a period of militancy followed, and I lost a lot of friends. Delighted to report that. Cleaned up my garden, and I don't believe that there's an argument out there from the apologists that has any coherency. And so typically when you get engaged in those things on Twitter, it kind of goes nowhere, It kind of goes nowhere. And I think I used to use this concept that I'm not trying to convert the person I'm arguing with. I'm trying to persuade people that might be watching the argument.
Correct. Yeah.
And I ran on that fuel for some time, and then Trump was elected, and my passion started to move towards fighting that absurdity.
I see you quite vocal on Twitter.
I am quite vocal in the space of Trump and this swing to the right of politics. And
I think it's the what I find with a lot of atheists is that we see an injustice very quickly, and we feel personally aggrieved by it. I think the whole being, coming from religion and being conned and lied to for so long has played a little bit of just a little bit.
No, I think it's a lot of it. I think, I think the root of conspiracy thinking is religion.
Yeah.
Because I think that if you're prepared to accept one thing without evidence, what will you not accept? Exactly. So flawed thinking, this faulty worldview that religion clearly establishes in our lives, allows people the license to claim the earth is flat, or that vaccines don't work, or that there's a new world order with a conspiracy against us, And to be honest, I think it's getting worse, Dean. I think that our rational pushback doesn't seem to be working, And the late great
tribal as well,
the late great Christopher Hitchens, who is one of my muses and one of my heroes and a great inspiration to my atheist thinking. He said that religion will never die. It might change, but it will never die. There's always people that are gullible enough to believe in wishful thinking.
Exactly. Yeah. So, what was the deconversion process like for you? Was there a specific linchpin that you pulled, or was
not
it
really,
a gradual process or an aha moment?
No, not really. I mean, when I was 7 or 8 and the Santa Claus thing broke my heart, I think that everything fell apart then.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I think, retrospectively, my father was a humanist, but he never made his views clear to us as children.
Yeah.
But what he did say is, it's up to you. Make up your own mind. And I firmly believe that if any child looks at the possibility of God and the possibility of no God as an open page, a blank sheet of paper, if they can get rid of all the confirmation biases that have been indoctrinated into them and really have an open mind and choose, they will always choose no God. It's why I would argue quite vociferously for religion only to be introduced to children at the age of 14. Leave them alone until they're 14, and then try and tell them, once they've had science education, try and tell them that Jesus was born from a virgin mother, and that a snake spoke from a tree, and that the Red Sea opened, and that Noah had all the animals
lived inside a fish.
I mean, for Christ's sake, they will just laugh and ridicule their teacher, and religion would be over within a matter of decades, because it's a child abuse. In fact, it's a mass child abuse that's going on.
Religions should be treated, in my opinion, like any mind-altering substance. Good point. It's only at the age of 18 when
correct.
When you are like considered an adult in society, at least when you can make a
correct
informed decision and you can live with the consequences of your action. Only then should you have the choice.
I share that view with you precisely. I can tell you that if that was the case, that religion was prohibited to be taught until the age of 18. I mean, I said 14 for argument's sake, but until the age, I mean, it would be gobsmackingly stupid to actually accept this new truth. It would be cognitive dissonance of the highest order. And we would have a very low religious population and a very high atheist population.
And that's the thing that I think religion really has got us beat on, is just building community. And that is why I initially when I saw the Atheist Republic Facebook groups, I said to myself, fuck yes, at least a sense of community, and there's some people, and that's, it's not like I felt like, not going to these religious meetings was, left a hole in my soul and left me incomplete, but there's great solidarity when you meet like-minded people and you discuss like-minded things. And it's also so we can plot the end of religion. Together.
From your lips to God's ears. That's a tall task. No, I absolutely agree with you. I found great comfort in the Atheist Republic in America. What's the guy's name?
You're referring to Armin.
Yeah, I forget the name, but I watched a lot of his shows and his interviews and his call show where really thick-headed, blinded religious nut jobs phone in and try to convince him. And he's a converted pastor. And I found great comfort in those kind of atheist societies. But my position now is that I mean, unless it's straight in my social space, and somebody's being overtly rude, I kind of just let it go. Just kind of I've got other fish to fry.
Exactly. Yeah, I think when as we age, we become more apathetic towards the whole. The whole thing. But there seems to be a general trend where people start off. The militancy factor sort of like goes up as people get into atheism, then it plateaus, and then it goes down into indifference, you know. And,
yeah. But I mean, I must admit, I can't have a social gathering without making some joke about the lack of gods. You know? So I'm always prodding, and I half hope somebody takes up the bait, because I think I'm equipped now with logical, ontological arguments now that can win the day. You know.
Yeah. You know, for me, it's at the end of the day, it's all about just being, you know, it's almost like religion is a flood, you know, and
yeah,
you know, I want to be like that one pole that sticks out and stands above the flood,
yeah.
Just to be a voice of resistance, you know, and because
in
my opinion,
and reason.
religion it's an imposition, you know, it's an imposition
It
on
is.
people. And if nobody speaks up and says, I'm sorry, no, this doesn't fly around here, they will impose and they will take over, you know. And it's just
they will. And also, I think it's also important to disabuse religious people of the notion that this is a kind, gentle movement, you know. I mean, religion is responsible for massive tragedies globally, you know. And the silly arguments that they come back with about Hitler and Pol Pot and Mao Zedong, I mean, and Stalin, it's just so easily rebutted these days because we have knowledge, you know. We've seen...
I mean, people who make those kind of arguments are firstly completely ignorant of history, you know.
Correct.
If you spend 30 minutes reading any history book, you will notice the trail of blood and guts and entrails that Christianity left behind.
Correct. I love the way you say it. But the thing is, they're actually lazy thinkers, you know. They're lazy thinkers, and it comes to a broader point that the lack of critical thinking skills in this generalized group of religiosity is stunning, you know. That they aren't able to discern the difference between truth and disinformation and misinformation. And that they have so much lack of trust in institutional knowledge that they will never refer to it. And all their knowledge must come from David Icke on YouTube, you know, or one of those absolute plonkers, you know. And they dive down that rabbit hole into irrational thought, and then they're so protective of their feelings that they refuse to acknowledge the possibility that they may have been misled, you know. It's it's so the history of religion is what I really nail people at. You know, I often say, "Oh, so you support slavery," or I say, or ethnic cleansing and genocide and infanticide, and they say, "No, never." And I said, "But that's your Bible story. You know? That's what it says. That's Stephen King couldn't have written a better horror story than the Bible. Did you actually read it? You know." And mostly I find
exactly. I call it religion a la carte. You know, they take they take religion as if they are sitting at a restaurant and they're going, "Thank you, waiter. Yes, I am ready to order. Can I have some gentle Jesus, meek and mild for starters? And then for main course, we'll have love thy neighbor and do unto others. And for dessert, you know, just a scoop of you know, love thy neighbor." You know, I don't have the stomach for all the genocide, the violence, the torture, the killing, the misogyny. You know, I don't have the stomach for that.
Order of sacrifice my son, please.
So, Jamie, was there ever a specific person or an organization that you know, that was you know, like you said, you started to question at a very young age, you know, but there has to be like a turning point where you actually like adopted the label atheist and everything, and you felt comfortable identifying as one. So was there ever an organization or a person or someone that was influential in your deconversion process?
Yeah, I think the deconversion happened organically from a young age, but I will say that Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, reading their books maybe only maybe about 20 years ago, really solidified. Because until then I was kind of passive.
Yeah.
I never really intellectually interrogated the concept. I just had a default position saying that's just a bullshit story, but I didn't really have an argument to support my position. But Richard Dawkins particularly, and especially Christopher Hitchens, who was so rhetorically gifted that I just
what an intellect,
his words, And I would say those two are the biggest influences in terms of solidifying or giving meat to my deconversion. I had been deconverted, but I hadn't really intellectually interrogated it. But they gave me food for thought, and also they gave me fuel for argument.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like the reason I ask this question of people usually is because the second we identify with a specific role model, be it a person or an organization, it emboldens us. It emboldens us to speak out for ourselves. We recognize in another person or an organization some of the traits that we want to live out as people as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. For me as well, besides Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, I enjoyed Sam Harris's talks as well.
I love Sam Harris. I mean,
and there's an American lady called Madeleine Murray O'Hair who also had absolutely zero tolerance for religion. She was, I think she was one of the founders of.
I'll have a little search for her, but
I'll send you a couple of links afterwards that you can have a look at.
You did remind me about Sam Harris, who's another person I absolutely admire. And then let's look back. I mean, some of the older philosophers like Bertrand Russell, he gave me a lot of strength in argument. And I think you have to have those arguments with yourself. And you have to solidify them before you open yourself up to the challenges of the religious, nut jobs, these apologists, And you have to recognize the history of argumentation theory, because it's like going into a den of wolves. They have all these 2,000 years of arguments that they've researched and they've twisted and talked. And they can very easily trap you in logical conundrums. So it's a mistake for us to think that they are idiots and stupid. Some of them are incredibly sharp and
deceptive.
You have to have good arguments in your pocket.
And some of them are especially sleazy and deceptive, and that's what I notice. Like they'll come with a bait and switch, so you have to be extremely, for me, the first time I heard about fallacious reasoning and logical fallacies, I was like, fuck.
It's mind-blowing.
This is like religion.
Yeah.
All of those arguments that people use that used to be extremely persuasive and once you see, they say once you see how the sausages are made, you lose your taste for them altogether.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that they liberally use these sleazy arguments. I like the way you said it. And they use it without conscience, and they have no shame, no sense of shame at willfully lying and gaslighting and distorting the truth and distorting your words. And so I don't find them to be ethically decent interlocutors, so it also helps me take my gloves off. And it helps me hit them with the bombs that also have no shame and no empathy. And I can deliver with cruelty, because to be honest, you've got to fight like with like at times. And they don't deserve compassion, those people. Their arguments very quickly devolve into the worst kind of expressions of what God is. And it's been a while since I've engaged with them because I've got a bit bored with it.
Yeah.
But from time to time, my militancy rises up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll say
It's
something.
usually when, like I'm an equal opportunity how can I say, an equal opportunity atheist. Like if you keep your religion to yourself, you're not going to hear about atheism from me, but as soon
Yeah.
as you come to me with, mudman and rib woman in the garden 6,000 years ago, and then we're gonna have a problem, because
Yeah,
I don't play that shit. No,
Yeah,
sorry.
call you out. You tell me the Earth is 6,000 years old. I
Yeah,
am going to call you out.
yeah,
And
exactly. I agree wholeheartedly.
I just wish, in general, that we could find a way in this world. I mean, religion is one part of the problem,
Yeah,
but conspiracy thinking is a danger to democracy. It's perhaps it's one of the most dangerous threats to
yeah,
the democratic world order. And I wish there was a way people cleverer than me could design argumentation to shut off this kind of growth in this cancerous conspiracy thinking. I mean, we're having a resurgence of smallpox now in parts of Africa. Polio is in danger of making a comeback.
yeah,
Diseases that make coronavirus look like, gentle Jesus
yeah,
are possibly going to make a comeback because of mass ignorance that is tolerated. And the reluctance of normal rational people to absolutely ridicule the idea and to cast shame and aspersions on those propagating it, I think is part of the problem. People can say stupid shit, and when you call them out, they go, "Oh, just don't be so aggressive, Jamie." But they should go into the naughty corner with a dunce cap on and sit there in shame for a week or two, and maybe that would stop this nonsense.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, and that's that's another thing, that I'm, also very passionate about, is teaching people critical thinking skills. Not what to think, but how to think about something. And you've got quite a couple of members in our consulate here in Cape Town that are also involved in that. Like there's this one lady who does the Afrikaans streaming on our channel as well, who runs a non-profit that their specific focus is on going into rural communities and going to those farm schools and teaching those kids critical thinking skills, how to think, what works, what doesn't work.
Well, that's
so if we can get something like that on a national level going, it's gonna do so much good for South Africa and for Africa as a whole, because this continent, I don't know, Christianity really fucked this continent.
Well,
really good, really good, and it's oppressive. It's oppressive to our local people. Everything, the entire culture, the entire way of living, everything was whitewashed. And Christianity has got a lot of how can I say, a lot of guilt and blame to bear there, but unfortunately it just goes like, come.
Well, it's one of the things I remember having a discussion with some fairly militant, in Muizenberg at the Bluebird Market one night. A group of Johannesburg young sort of students, I think, black students, were there, and we got engaged in discussion about racism in the Cape. And I said, to be honest, I've lived, all over South Africa, and I think racism in the Cape, I think many people are in denial about white privilege, and that's terrible, but it's different than being overtly racist. I say, I don't think in general in Cape Town we are in general overtly racist, but we might not have taken full responsibility for white privilege and white guilt and all of those things. And they were quite angry with me in many ways, talking about my implicit support of colonialism.
Right.
And I said, well, I don't support it, and I do have guilt about it, and I'm aware of my white privilege, and I'm learning to be less racist all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I did grow up with white privilege. I did have maids, and I didn't really know where they lived or how they got to work. But I'm trying to unlearn all of those things.
Yeah.
And they started to talk about the peril of colonialism. And then I asked them, so are you religious? Oh, yes, they're Christian. I said, well, the greatest colonial damage done is the importation of Christianity. Where do you know, this intellectual hypocrisy has got to be answered to. You should be able to tell me on the table now why you think the imposition of colonial religion was beneficial, but all other colonial impositions were disastrous. And you know, it got to a point where they just, you know, just got a stalemate, because they said, no, but God is real. Colonialism was an imposition, but God is real.
Yeah.
The only reason you think God is real, you know, is because of colonialism.
That's like saying you when you're being tortured, you hate the spanking, but you love the torturer.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the S&M, but I hate the dominatrix.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, how I operate these days is, if somebody does ask me, do I believe in God? You know, if they ask that question, I do the passive aggressive thing by saying, which God?
Yeah.
And that, of course, opens up a whole can of worms for the discussion, you know. But in my social group now, most people stay away from me, you know, stay away from the discussion, because they recognize that, you know, I've done my research properly, and I believe in institutional authorities, and many, I don't appeal to them, but I believe in the wisdom of I believe in the wisdom of great minds whose shoulders I stand on.
Yes.
You know, and this do your own research thing is another bloody miserable argument, you know.
Right. And I mean, like, let's talk a little bit about the harm that, you know, we've touched a little bit on the harm that religion does. You know, have you ever experienced any negative impacts in your life because of religion? You know, like, and I mean, I specifically, you know, mentioned things like, you know, that constant living in fear, you know, like thinking that someone's looking over your shoulder, the unrealistic expectations that religion puts on us, you know, making us intolerant.
I have to be honest and say no, you know, because from such a young age, I was disinterested in the concept, you know, and I wasn't going to be, I didn't have this concept that there was some authority looking over me, you know? So from a very young age, it didn't, but I was harmed very much by this Anglican bishop that used to beat me at school when I was 6 years old, you know? And the cruelty that with which he dispensed his justice, that has lived with me all my life, you know. And although it wasn't tied to my belief or lack thereof, it was tied to my understanding of the hypocrisy of religion. And I have had a fear of religious people, you know, in many ways since then. One of Christopher Hitchens' challenges was to say, if you were in a strange land and it was 6 a.m. and the light was just coming up, and you saw 12 people walking towards you who had just come from church, or 12 people walking towards you who had come from a nightclub, who would terrify you more, you know? And invariably, I'd be more terrified of the religious people, you know, coming through. You know,
especially in a strange country, you know, like you can try to, you know, try that shit in the Middle East. Let's see.
Exactly. You're gonna walk through.
The world is going crazy at the moment, Jamie. The world's going crazy. I don't even know what's going on.
I feel so much pain for Ukraine.
Countries invading one another, and this one's at war with that one, and you know, it's very strange.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, I actually have some business contacts in Russia, and they are getting a whitewashed stream of media, you know, completely oblivious to what's really going on. You know, it's only independent news sources that really report on what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
But they're being fed a story, you know. So it's I believe the media is completely state controlled there, even though it is.
I was just watching an article on I think it was on CNN. It was an interview with a tech analyst, and he introduced me to this new company called Yandex, which is actually the largest tech company in the world. It's Russian exclusively, and it operates as sort of an Amazon and a Google. It also takes all the ride shares and Uber shares. It also does all the online food delivery sales, all your purchases. It sort of controls Russia, and they had great global aspirations. Of course, that's now shut down. But he was saying that on Yandex, which is the primary source of information for the youth that are connected to the internet, is Yandex, and there's no mention of what's going on in Ukraine. Everything is whitewashed, you know. And that it's this conspiracy thinking. It's this lack of critical thought, which I speak about, which is such a threat to the global world order, you know. And
but I think it's nationalism, you know, like nationalism plays a big part in this whole thing, you know, because you have to be able to have some form of nationalism, you know, to get that many people to be okay with, you know, the government pulling such a move. You know, granted, I mean, I'm speaking out of ignorance here, you know, so I just be guessing. But you know, we can talk about this ad nauseum. I'm sure we can do an entire stream on.
But I do agree with you. I have to say, I don't think Putin's aggression against Ukraine would have happened without Trump taking the presidency in 2016.
Yeah,
I think, you know, Trump is a divisive nationalist rhetoric, and he's shattering of the trust in the institutional strengths of American and global organizations, gave Putin the feeling that his attack would divide NATO, divide the EU, break the world apart. And, you know, I have to say, thankfully, it hasn't worked, you know. And as bad as Ukraine is, it might be a tipping point to shatter the illusion of these autocracies and understand that the world is resilient and resolved to never give in to this kind of aggression and this kind of extension of their autocratic endeavors into other countries.
I mean, you know, like when I first heard of it, I thought to myself, like, bro, that's a weird flex, you know. When I heard the Russians are taking over Ukraine, I said to myself, wow, what a weird flex that is, you know, like they're standing there going,
I know. What's interesting, though, and I think it's quite informative and it's quite important to observe, that UK and US intelligence were absolutely accurate. And they kept warning us beforehand. And in a very real time, they exposed Putin and the kleptocrats there as blatant liars. The intelligence was correct. The denials of Lavrov and Putin and his, you know, bunch of, you know, just evil people have been exposed in real time to the Western world, making it unequivocal that they are on one side of the good and bad paradigm. You know?
Exactly.
And, but you know,
the funny thing is, you know, like you'll see those snide Christian comments, you know, like, look what atheist Russia is doing now. Now all of a sudden Russia is the atheists, you know. And I was going to myself like, fuck, you know, they haven't had an atheist regime there in decades, you know, like
having no
half the country is
Orthodox Church, which has been an institutional power for 1,000 years in Russia, which has informed the thinking, the critical thinking skills of the Russian population. You know, again, religion is at the root of this shit. You know? again and again and again, we find the same thing. Religion is at the root. You know. Anyway, what's it? Strava Ukraine. You know, I'm so impressed with the way they're battling back, and how what was the conundrum is might equals power, or right equals power. You know, and we are finding that right equals power, because the Russians are being crushed at every corner. You know, and they're turning
and
to
that leader of theirs, you know, like he really he came out as like an underdog, and how can I say, a bit of a
he's very impressive.
Very impressive the way that he rallies.
And the memes that have got to go out of this for the world to see, when he said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. You know, that's going to live long in our history. You know? And
I know, it's crazy.
Of that Ukrainian woman approaching 2 Russian soldiers and literally telling them to fuck off out of our country. You know? And then she said, take these sunflower seeds, put them in a pocket. So when you die here, at least flowers will grow. You know, these stories are going to be crystallized in memes that are going to, blow up on social media going forward.
It's true. I mean, like, we're sitting here, as it's just a strange world that we live in. You know, like, there's a war going on where people are killing and blasting one another, and the whole planet is consuming it like it's a TV series. You know, we're all sitting there glued to our TV screens, going like, "Oh, what's going to happen next?" You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. Look, I have a very real concern. My son is getting married to a woman in Poland,
right?
And currently he's in Norway, and I love so many things about Cape Town, and I love so many things about South Africa, and I have great belief in our country as a democracy emerging. And I thought, well, why don't they come down here? Because we are out of the stream of this violence. You know, Cape Town we'll feel the economic pain, of course, but we are not going to be threatened with a nuclear blast or chemical invasion.
No, it's a completely different side of the planet.
Yeah, we're far removed from that. So I would like my son to come home.
I'm sure. Let's pop these. I just have 2 more questions to ask, and then I think we can wrap it up. This is a fun one, right? I always like to ask people, when you reflect back, I mean, for you it happened at a very young age, but if you could say something to your younger self, just to give you that we call it a peer club. Something to snap you out of it. What is the one thing you would say to your younger version of yourself?
I'd probably say exactly what my father said to me, which is, keep an open mind. Just keep an open mind. Don't believe everything you read. Read between the lines. Look at alternative sources of information. Reconfirm the story, and come to an informed decision. So I would probably say that. I mean, my children are both atheist, but I was also not I didn't advocate for it. I also kept very neutral in all my discussions with them as they were growing up. And both of them are firmly atheist, but not militant. They're too gentle to be militant. They're just gentle, kind, compassionate souls. Which is the opposite of what most Christian children are. So that's pretty much what I'd say, is just keep an open mind.
That's it links back to what we were discussing earlier with that, being taught how to think and not being taught what to think.
Correct. I think it's very important. I think there's much more power in allowing people to engage with ideas themselves rather than lecturing them into the concepts. And I think that's exactly what the religious do, is they lecture their children into the concepts. And I do argue forcefully, and I am firm in my conviction that it is child abuse.
True. No, I share that opinion. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's people get trained for years at universities in order to be able to teach to children, and here some schmuck goes and reads a couple of Bible chapters, and all of a sudden they're teaching Sunday school, like indoctrinating kids. And
No, it's shocking. It's shocking. And
it should be regulated. Like wasn't there this move a while ago where some legal body wanted to regulate religion and have pastors have like some kind of license or something? Didn't I hear something?
It makes sense to me if there was that movement, but I can tell you that I mean, I think South Africa is 85% religious, so it's very, very high, and
can you imagine they'll have to create a separate department, like the Department of Motor Vehicles. You'll have the Department of bullshittery.
Yeah,
you'll have to go and apply for your license to dispense bullshit.
I think it'd be wise to find out what Sweden did to get it right.
Yeah.
What those countries that are high on education and low on religiosity.
Socialism.
What did they do?
That's what they got right, Jamie.
Yeah.
Socialism.
What did they do to get it right? How did that happen? Yeah. It's a form of socialism. Quite right. Yeah. Socialism taught in a way of empathy.
Yeah.
In a way that's empathetic, and because they're really.
It's also, if you look at a country like Sweden, 9 months of the year it's too cold to leave your house.
Yeah, I'd also be quite pissed off with God if my weather patterns were like that.
It's not that people don't want to stir cock, it's like it's too cold to stir cock and leave your house.
Yeah. What's the next last question there?
Where can people find you? Where can people find you on social
right,
media?
Yeah. So you say I'm pretty active on Twitter.
Yeah.
At Epicurian Atheist.
Okay. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video as well, if anybody's keen on following.
Yeah, and this might help me reinvigorate myself in my fighting against religion. Because I did enjoy that period of my life quite a lot. It's intellectually rewarding in a way.
For me, it's all about the community aspect. Like when. Yeah. When I was first questioning, like I said, I didn't know where to go. I didn't even know that there were other atheists in South Africa, and we are legion. There's so many of us. You just need to you need to organize people around a central idea, a central frame of mind, a central bit of thought, and people jump in. And it gives a great sense of community when people discover that they don't believe anymore. They realize they're not alone. They're not going to be.
And that's true, because that sense of community, that sense of understanding that there are others like you out there. The same with this breakthrough from the LGBTQ community, Once you find that there is a brotherhood, there is a place to go where you're not going to be isolated and shunned. Yeah, it is important. I did have, in the height of my militancy, I had good plans, and I had a venue where I was going to have critical thinking debates. And bring people in and have an audience and have a discussion about it. And but then after watching many of the debates just falter and fall into circular logic, and when I looked at the results of those debates, and all those people with their confirmation bias that were religious going in felt that the religious interlocutor won, and all those that were atheists going in felt that the atheist won. And I thought, well, just change your mind.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's a it's a very noble pursuit, because ultimately that's the purpose of a debate. Like if you have a debate and one person changes their mind, like Correct. The debate was a success. Doesn't matter if 2,500 or 2,499 people leave that debate not having changed their mind. It's for that one person to change their mind. It was. It was a success. Or if that person just reconsiders or thinks about their position again in a critical light due to something that was discussed in a debate, then the debate was a success. It's not.
Yeah.
But a lot of people tend to go through these processes where they score debates. Yeah, like 40% was this way before the debate, and after the debate it was 60% this way. And therefore
But
this person won or that
you
person
just
won.
change one mind, and one mind will change other minds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like that's my purpose as well. It's like if one, if during the duration of this, even though we are constantly growing our numbers, we've got. I mean, in our community, we've got Johannesburg, Durban, Pretoria, and Cape Town, 4 big cities in South Africa. We got over 1,000 members in our groups. So we.
How do I
remember? I'll send you a link to the group.
Send me a link, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. It's a Facebook group where we discuss and
nice
gather amongst ourselves. Before COVID hit, we used to do meetups. Where we would go to the company gardens, would do like a brunch or something on a Sunday.
Oh, that's lovely. I'd love to be part of the community.
Yeah, we want to get I just really want this whole Corona dust to settle, and for things to be semi back to normal, where people can more or less walk outside without masks now. It's only when you gather inside, So as soon as the dust settles, we'll get that back up and running.
There are worrying signs from Hong Kong that we're not over this pandemic yet. There are worrying. I mean, we do feel like we've won the struggle, but if you look around the world, there are problem areas, and Corona's not done with us yet.
Yeah, I mean, I can't decide which is the bigger imposition in my life, whether it's religion or wearing a mask. I detest
fascism.
Wearing the fucking mask.
Fascism.
I cannot bear it. But I guess we'll have to do.
You know what I want, from my perspective, from an intellectually critical thinking perspective.
Yeah.
I must be honest. I used to get the flu and the common cold 3 or 4 times a year. Every time there was a change in the season, I'd get the snuffles and be sick.
Yeah.
Since I've started wearing a mask, I haven't once had any. So I've got no problem with it, and I'll probably keep at least keep one of these scruffs on. I'll probably keep it up. It doesn't bother me at all.
I don't know, like we were given these in the office. We were given these medical grade masks, and they're
tough.
They're pretty tough to breathe through, So
they are tough.
You do like 30 minutes. You do like 30 minutes, 45 minutes on one, and you have to go outside and take it off.
Get a breath of clean air. And when you wear glasses, I wear glasses. When you wear glasses and you have that, just steams up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, Jamie, thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure meeting you. I'll drop you those links in Skype now. Thank you for bearing with me during the beginning.
It's a pleasure, man. It's been my pleasure, I can tell you. It's been lovely to chat to a like-minded guy,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'll put your links to your social media in our description. And
awesome.
We'll see you again.
And how will I find it on YouTube?
I'll send you the link to the YouTube channel. You can just search for Atheist Republic Cape Town, and you should find.
Perfect.
You should find the channel on there.
All right, Dean.
Cool, man.
Keep well and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
And you, man. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Cheers.